Before we start, I want to say that only 1% of you are subscribed. Please subscribe because when we reach 1,000 subscribers, I will post a special video for you. Jason gazed out of the shuttle window as the alien landscape unfurled beneath him. The lush, verdant valleys of Tevra, speckled with the vibrant hues of its native flora, were breathtaking. Beside him, another human delegate, Mark, whistled softly. "Never gets old, does it?" Mark asked, his eyes also fixed on the view. "No, it really doesn't," Jason replied, his mind racing with both excitement and a bit of nervousness about the mission ahead. As the shuttle descended towards the diplomatic quarters, a bustling complex designed to facilitate interspecies communication and governance, Jason reviewed the goals in his mind. Establishing a deeper connection with the Tevrans and learning from their advanced, peaceful society was paramount. Upon landing, they were greeted by a delegation of Tevrans, their slender forms draped in flowing garments of shimmering fabric. The leader of the delegation, a dignified figure named Sealer, approached with a warm smile. "Welcome, Jason, Mark," Sealer intoned, his voice melodious and soothing. "We are honored to host you on Tevra. May your stay be enlightening." "Thank you, Sealer," Jason responded, stepping forward to exchange a customary greeting, a gentle tap of the shoulders, which he had practiced beforehand. "We are eager to learn and share in peace." Mark followed suit, slightly awkward but earnest. The delegates then led them through the complex, which was a marvel of alien architecture, combining elegance and functionality. The walls themselves seemed to pulse with a soft light, reacting to the presence of its inhabitants. "Your accommodations have been prepared," Sealer explained as they walked. "Each of you will be assigned a liaison to assist with your daily needs and to facilitate your integration during your stay." Jason nodded, impressed with the efficiency and hospitality. "We appreciate your generosity," he said. As they reached Jason's quarters, another Tevran stepped forward. She was slightly shorter than Sealer, with eyes that shimmered like the twin moons of Tevra. "I am Lyra," she introduced herself, her voice a soft chime. "I will be your aide during your visit." "Pleased to meet you, Lyra," Jason replied, feeling a curious spark of connection. He glanced at Mark, who seemed equally taken with his own assigned aide, a robust Tevran named Kilo. Lyra gestured for Jason to follow her into his quarters. The room was spacious and adorned with local artistry, providing comfort and a touch of Tevran aesthetics. She began explaining the features of the room, from the communication devices to environmental controls tailored for human needs. "If there's anything specific you require or wish to know about our culture and customs, feel free to ask me anytime," Lyra offered, standing gracefully by the door. Jason smiled, settling his bag down beside the bed. "Actually, I am quite interested in learning about your government structure and how you maintain peace across Tevra," he said, hoping to start their interactions on a solid footing of mutual exchange. "Ah, a topic close to our hearts," Lyra responded, her face lighting up with enthusiasm. "Let us begin with the principles of consensus and empathy, foundational to our way of life." As they delved into conversation, Jason felt the initial barriers of formality melting away. Lyra was not only knowledgeable, but also keenly interested in human perspectives. It promised the start of a fascinating exchange. "Dinner will be served in the central hall where you will meet other delegates and our council members," Lyra mentioned as their discussion came to a natural pause. "I look forward to it," Jason replied, energized by the prospect of the evening. As Lyra left, Jason glanced around his new quarters, feeling a mix of anticipation and confidence about the days to come. Tevra wasn't just a new world to explore. It was a new opportunity to bridge the vastness of space with the closeness of shared understanding. Jason settled into the rhythm of life on Tevra, the days filled with meetings and learning sessions, each evening capped off with rich, cultural exchanges. Mark, his fellow delegate, found equal fascination in the technical innovations the Tevrans shared, often pulling Jason aside to discuss their applications. One night, as Jason reviewed notes from the day's sessions in his quarters, a soft chime signaled someone at his door. Expecting Mark or perhaps Lyra with some update, he called, "Enter," without looking up. The door slid open quietly, and footsteps approached. Jason finally looked up, expecting to see a familiar face, but instead, he found Lyra standing hesitantly by the door, her expression a mixture of surprise and embarrassment. Accidentally, my maid came to my room at night. She shocked saw me without. Jason's words trailed off, realizing he was only in his undershirt and shorts, not his usual attire for meetings. Lyra's cheeks tinted with a subtle shade of violet, a sign of discomfort among her kind. I apologize, Jason. I was meant to check on Mark's quarters tonight. I seem to have misread the schedule. Jason smiled, trying to ease the tension. No harm done, Lyra. Please, sit down. I was just going over these fascinating notes about your agricultural tech. Curiosity replaced her initial embarrassment as she moved closer, her gaze settling on the holographic displays scattered around the room. You are interested in our agritech? She inquired, her voice steadying. Yes, very much, Jason responded, gesturing to the seat beside him. Mark and I were just discussing its potential application on Earth. Lyra sat, her interest piqued. Mark is quite knowledgeable. I've noticed he has a keen understanding of mechanical systems. Jason laughed. That he does. He's like a kid in a candy shop around your tech. Speaking of which, he wanted to run some ideas by you and Kilo about integrating some of it with Earth-based systems. If you're not too busy now, it would be my pleasure to discuss this, Lyra said, her earlier discomfort forgotten as professional curiosity took over. Mark, who had been notified, soon joined them with Kilo in tow. The room buzzed with animated conversation as they delved into the specifics of Tevran technology, particularly the energy-efficient farming modules. As the discussion wound down, Lyra's earlier faux pas became a source of light humor. Next time, I'll make sure to knock thrice, she joked, her ease around the human delegates growing. Make it 4, just to be safe, Mark chimed in, laughing. He turned to Kilo, clapping him on the back. And you, make sure this genius doesn't forget to sleep. He's got a habit of working through the night. Kilo's deep chuckle resonated in the room. I will ensure he rests, don't worry. As Lyra and Kilo prepared to leave, Jason felt a genuine sense of camaraderie building, not just in the context of their mission, but on a personal level as well. Thank you for tonight, Lyra, Kilo. This was enlightening, Jason said, standing to see them out. And thank you for being open to our ideas, Lyra replied, her smile reflecting a shared sentiment. The door closed behind them, leaving Jason and Mark in contemplative silence. Mark broke it first. They're incredible, aren't they? Their technology, their culture. It's all so harmonious, Jason finished for him. Yes, it's not just their tech that could help us, but their way of life. There's much to learn here. Nodding in agreement, Mark added, and to think, this partnership started with you half-dressed and a mistaken room visit. Both men laughed, the sound echoing lightly in the room. As they turned back to their notes, the night's mishap turning into another bridge built in their interstellar journey. Jason found himself increasingly drawn to the subtleties of Tevran culture, their nuanced approach to governance and ethics intriguing him deeply. One afternoon, after a particularly intense seminar on Tevran legal philosophy, he and Mark decided to take a walk through one of the verdant parks that dotted the diplomatic quarter. So, Lyra seems to be quite the expert on their legal systems, Mark commented as they strolled along a path lined with luminous, bioluminescent plants. Jason nodded, his mind still on the complexities they had discussed. Yes, she explained the consensus model they use. It's fascinating how they manage to incorporate empathy into legal proceedings, ensuring all voices are genuinely heard. Mark chuckled, kicking a small, smooth stone along the path. Empathy in law? Imagine that on Earth. Their conversation drifted from work as they observed several Tevrans engaged in a slow, graceful game resembling chess, but with pieces that softly glowed and pulsed. Want to try learning that game one of these days? Jason suggested, nodding toward the players. Definitely, Mark agreed. Looks like chess, but with extra steps and lights. As evening approached, they returned to their quarters, where Jason found Lyra waiting for him with a small device in hand. I brought you the translator updates you requested, she said, handing him the sleek, palm-sized gadget. Thanks, Lyra. Have you got time to go over some more questions about your culture? I'm particularly interested in how Tevrans deal with conflict on a personal level, given the emphasis on public consensus. Lyra's eyes brightened, a sign of her eagerness. Of course, I'd be happy to explain. Perhaps over a meal? We could discuss it more casually. That sounds perfect, Jason replied. At dinner, Jason, Mark, Lyra, and Kilo gathered in a small dining room where dishes of both human and Tevran cuisine were served. As they ate, the conversation naturally veered towards Jason's questions. Lyra, in Earth's history, personal conflicts often escalate and can even impact larger societal structures. How do Tevrans manage to keep these personal issues from affecting the wider community? Jason asked, genuinely curious. Lyra thought for a moment before answering. On Tevra, when a personal conflict arises, it's common to seek mediation early. We have trained mediators in every community. It's not just about resolving a dispute, but understanding the deeper emotional currents behind it. Mark, listening intently, interjected, sounds like you guys invest a lot in maintaining harmony. Yes, exactly, Kilo added. It's seen as everyone's responsibility to contribute to societal harmony, not just those directly involved in the conflict. The discussion deepened as they shared stories from their respective cultures, drawing parallels and noting stark differences. Lyra and Kilo listened intently to Jason and Mark's descriptions of Earth's more adversarial legal and political systems. As the meal ended, Lyra suggested, if you're interested, there's a mediation session tomorrow in the community hall. It's open for observation. You could see firsthand how our mediators work. That would be invaluable, Jason replied, enthusiasm evident in his voice. Thanks for the invitation. Mark, ever the observer, added, this is great. It's one thing to discuss theory, another to see it in action. They all agreed to attend, and as they left the dining room, Jason felt a surge of appreciation for the opportunity to not just witness but understand another world's approach to peace and conflict. It's remarkable, isn't it? He said to Mark as they walked back to their quarters. How much we can learn from each other. Mark nodded, a thoughtful look on his face. Yeah, makes you wonder what else we could change for the better back home. With just a bit of empathy and understanding, their conversation lingered in the air as they retired for the night, both men contemplating the lessons of harmony and empathy that might one day transform their own world. The next morning, after a refreshing breakfast, Jason and Mark joined Lyra and Kilo at the community hall. The hall itself was a structure of beauty, its walls made of a translucent material that diffused the light into a spectrum of soft colors, reflecting the Tevran commitment to harmony and peace. As they walked, Mark leaned in towards Jason, whispering, I'm really looking forward to this. Seeing their mediation process could give us some good ideas for handling negotiations back home. Jason nodded, equally intrigued. Absolutely. It's one thing to hear about it, another to see it in practice. They were greeted at the hall by a mediator named Sivan, a respected figure in the Tevran community known for his wisdom and fairness. Sivan introduced himself with a serene smile, his voice calm and inviting. Welcome, Jason, Mark. We are pleased to share our practices with you. Today, you will observe a session that involves a dispute between two community members over a land use agreement, Sivan explained. Thank you for having us, Jason replied, as they were shown to their seats. The session began with both disputants presenting their cases. The mediator listened intently, occasionally asking probing questions that seemed to aim more at revealing emotions and underlying concerns rather than extracting mere facts. Mark, watching closely, leaned over to Jason. Notice how Sivan keeps the discussion focused on understanding rather than deciding. It's like he's peeling back layers. Jason nodded, impressed by the mediator's skill in navigating the conversation towards a deeper understanding between the parties. After the session, they had the chance to speak with Sivan. The goal of our mediation is not just resolution, but also to foster a deeper sense of community and mutual respect, Sivan shared. Lyra, standing beside Sivan, added, it's about healing. Not just the issue, but the relationships involved. The discussion gave Jason and Mark much to think about as they thanked Sivan and left the hall with Lyra and Kilo. The day was still young, and Lyra had another cultural experience in store. We thought you might enjoy visiting our City of Arts, where we celebrate all forms of artistic expression, Lyra suggested. It's a place where many visitors find a deeper connection with Tevra. That sounds amazing, Mark responded enthusiastically. I'm in. Their group made their way to the City of Arts, a vibrant district filled with galleries, performance spaces, and studios. As they toured the area, they were introduced to various artists, each offering insights into their work and how it contributed to Tevran culture. Jason was particularly drawn to a gallery showcasing holographic sculptures that shifted shapes based on the viewer's emotional state. This is incredible, he remarked, watching a sculpture morph from a serene sea to a stormy ocean. It reflects our belief that art should be interactive and reflective of the individual's inner state, Kilo explained, observing Jason's reaction. Mark, meanwhile, found himself engrossed in a musical performance where the instruments seemed to breathe and grow with the melody. Music that feels alive, he said, captivated by the sound. As the day turned to evening, they gathered for a meal in the district's main plaza, surrounded by the gentle lights and soft music of the City of Arts. The atmosphere was perfect for reflection and deep conversation. This exchange, today's experiences, they've given me so much to think about how we communicate and connect back home, Jason shared with the group. Mark agreed, his voice thoughtful. Yeah, there's something to be said for how art and empathy can bridge gaps that words sometimes can't. Lyra smiled, pleased with their response. We hope that by sharing our culture, we help foster not just understanding but also inspiration. As they concluded their meal and said their goodbyes, Jason felt a profound sense of gratitude. The day had not only deepened his appreciation for Tevran culture, but also sparked ideas on how to incorporate these lessons into his own life and work. Walking back to their quarters under a starlit sky, Jason turned to Mark. Today was unforgettable. Mark nodded, his eyes reflecting the starlight. Absolutely. It's experiences like these that change you. With hearts and minds full of new ideas and inspirations, they retired for the night, eager to see what other lessons the following days would bring. Late one evening, after a long day of collaborative projects and cultural immersion, Jason and Mark sat in the common lounge of their quarters, discussing the potential impacts of their experiences on Earth's diplomatic strategies. The room was softly lit, creating a relaxed atmosphere conducive to deep conversation. You know, Jason, Mark began, swirling his drink in his hand thoughtfully, the way the Tevrans integrate empathy into everything. They might be onto something. It could revolutionize how we handle international conflicts. Jason nodded, his mind racing with possibilities. I've been thinking the same. Imagine if our leaders took the time to truly understand their counterparts before jumping into negotiations. As they delved deeper into the topic, Lyra entered the lounge, her presence almost ethereal in the dim light. I hope I'm not interrupting, she said, her voice gentle. Not at all, Lyra. Join us, Jason invited, gesturing to an empty seat next to him. We were just discussing how Tevran practices might influence Earth's diplomacy. Lyra settled into the chair, her eyes reflecting a mix of curiosity and something else, perhaps apprehension. I've been meaning to talk to you both about something somewhat related, she began, hesitating slightly. What's on your mind? Mark asked, sensing her unease. It's about my feelings, Lyra confessed, looking directly at Jason. Over the past weeks, I've found myself appreciating not just your interest in our culture, but also you, Jason, as a person. This is not common for us, to feel this way about an outsider. Jason felt a jolt of surprise, his pulse quickening. He had sensed a connection, but hadn't dared to assume it might be mutual. Lyra, I'm honored that you feel that way. Honestly, I've felt a strong connection too. Mark, realizing the personal nature of their conversation, excused himself. I'll leave you two to talk this through, he said, giving Jason an encouraging nod as he left. Once alone, Jason turned to Lyra, his expression earnest. Lyra, your feelings. I share them, but we also need to consider the implications. Our mission here is delicate. I know, Lyra replied softly, and it's why I hesitated to speak. Our cultures are different, and so are our roles here. I don't want to cause complications for you or us. Jason reached out, taking her hand in a gesture of comfort. What matters is that we're honest with each other. Whatever we decide, we need to think it through carefully. Lyra squeezed his hand, her smile tentative but genuine. I agree. I value what we have, the connection and understanding. It's rare, even among my people, to find such harmony with someone. As they discussed their feelings and the possible paths forward, the night deepened around them, the stars outside the window casting a serene glow over their quiet conversation. They explored scenarios, from maintaining a professional relationship to exploring their emotions more deeply once the mission concluded. "Let's take it one day at a time," Jason finally suggested. "We can keep this between us, learn more about each other. And when the time is right, we'll know how to proceed." Lyra nodded, relief and happiness mingling in her eyes. "I would like that, Jason. To learn more together." Their conversation lingered into the night, each finding comfort in the other's presence and the shared understanding of their unique situation. When they finally said goodnight, it was with a sense of cautious optimism about the future. As Jason lay in bed later, he reflected on the complexities of interstellar diplomacy, not just between nations or planets, but between two hearts, each from a vastly different world. Yet, despite these differences, the potential for something profound and transformative was clear, and in that potential lay a new world of possibilities. In the days following their candid conversation, Jason and Lyra found themselves navigating a delicate balance of professional duties and personal discovery. The atmosphere between them was charged with an unspoken agreement of exploring their feelings while maintaining the integrity of their respective roles. One evening, after a particularly enlightening discussion panel, Jason and Lyra decided to take a walk through one of Tevra's botanical gardens. The air was cool, and the flora around them glowed softly under Tevra's twin moons, casting a surreal light on their path. Seeing all these plants thrive in harmony, each species contributing to the ecosystem, makes me think about diversity in a new way, Jason remarked, breaking the comfortable silence. "It's similar with relationships, isn't it?" Lyra responded, her voice tinged with reflection. "Each individual brings something unique to the whole, creating a balance." Jason nodded, appreciating the metaphor. "Exactly. It's about finding harmony, even if the elements are very different." They continued walking, the pathway leading them to a secluded bench overlooking a luminous pond. The scene was peaceful, almost otherworldly. They sat, the silence between them comfortable yet filled with anticipation. Jason turned to Lyra, his expression earnest. "Lyra, about what we discussed the other night, I haven't been able to stop thinking about it. About you." Lyra met his gaze, her eyes glowing softly in the moonlight. "Nor have I. It's unfamiliar territory for me, Jason, but it feels right." Taking a deep breath, Jason edged closer. "May I?" he asked softly, his hand reaching up tentatively towards her face. Lyra nodded, a gentle affirmation. Jason's fingers brushed her cheek, tracing the unique contours of her face. Her skin was smooth, the texture unlike anything he'd ever felt. Their eyes locked, and for a moment, the world seemed to pause around them. Jason leaned in, his heart pounding, and Lyra met him halfway. Their lips touched, tentatively at first, exploring the new sensation. The kiss deepened, driven by the weeks of building emotions and the gentle night around them. When they finally parted, they were both breathless. "That was—" Jason started, struggling to find the words. "Beautiful," Lyra finished for him, her voice a whisper. They sat in silence, holding hands, feeling the aftershocks of their first kiss. It wasn't just a physical connection, but an emotional alignment that resonated deeply within both of them. After a while, Jason spoke, his voice low. "What happens next?" Lyra squeezed his hand. "We continue to explore this, carefully. We can't ignore our duties, but we also can't ignore this," she said, gesturing between them. "I don't want to ignore it," Jason affirmed. "I want to see where this leads, Lyra. With you." Their conversation turned to practicalities, how to manage their relationship discreetly, given their roles, and how to navigate the potential challenges. They agreed on transparency with each other and caution in their public interactions. As they walked back, their connection felt stronger, fortified by honesty and the shared experience of their first kiss. The gardens around them seemed to glow brighter, mirroring their inner joy. Back at his quarters, Jason reflected on the evening. He felt a mixture of exhilaration and apprehension about the future. But overriding it all was a profound sense of hope. A hope not for some idealized outcome, but for the chance to experience something truly extraordinary with someone who had already changed his world. Several weeks had passed since Jason and Lyra shared their first kiss, and their discreet meetings had become the highlights of Jason's days on Tevra. They had managed to navigate their burgeoning relationship with a delicate balance of discretion and honesty, growing closer while still upholding their professional duties. Tonight was different, though. Tonight, they had planned to spend the evening at Jason's quarters, away from the prying eyes of their daily routines, to explore the depth of their connection. As Lyra entered his room, the air was tinged with anticipation. Jason had arranged the space thoughtfully, with ambient lights softening the sharp edges of his otherwise utilitarian living space. "Jason, this looks different," Lyra remarked, a playful smile curving her lips as she looked around. "I wanted us to have a special night, just for us," Jason replied, his voice slightly nervous as he stepped closer to her. "No distractions, no interruptions." Lyra's smile widened, and she reached out to touch his arm gently. "I appreciate this, Jason. I've been looking forward to tonight." They started the evening with a simple meal, which Jason had prepared himself, a mix of human and Tevran dishes that represented their shared experiences. As they ate, they spoke of trivial things, laughter filling the room, easing the tension. After the meal, Jason took a deep breath, his gaze locking with Lyra's. "Lyra, being with you like this, it feels right. It feels like we're meant to find this. Whatever this is between us." Lyra nodded, her expression serious but her eyes warm. "I feel it too, Jason. It's unlike anything I've experienced before. With you, I feel a harmony that's both exhilarating and comforting." Moving to the couch, they sat close together, the proximity no longer a source of nervous anticipation but a comforting assurance. Jason turned to face Lyra, his hand reaching up to gently caress her face. "May I?" he asked, the words now a tender prelude to their deeper intimacy. "Yes," Lyra whispered, leaning into his touch. Their lips met, the kiss deepening as they let go of the last vestiges of their initial hesitancy. The world outside faded away, leaving only the reality of their shared warmth. Hands exploring, touching, reaffirming their mutual desire and respect, they continued to discover each other. As the night deepened, their conversation turned to dreams and fears. Jason spoke of his hopes for their future, the potential challenges they faced, and his desire to make a life with Lyra that bridged their worlds. Lyra listened, her heart open. "Jason, I want that too. But we must be cautious, thoughtful. What we have is rare, and it's fragile in the face of our different worlds." "I know," Jason agreed, his voice a soft echo in the quiet room. "We'll find a way. We'll navigate this together, carefully but boldly too." They agreed to take things one step at a time, each moment together a step towards a future they both wished to forge. The night ended not with declarations of grand gestures, but with a quiet affirmation of their shared journey. As Lyra left just before dawn, their goodbye was a promise of more nights like this, of more shared dreams and whispered secrets. Jason watched her leave, feeling a sense of completeness he had never known before. The first rays of the morning sun brought with them a sense of renewal. As Jason prepared for the day, he felt anchored, his heart no longer adrift but sailing towards a horizon filled with the light of shared possibilities. The weeks that followed deepened Jason and Lyra's relationship as they continued to meet in secret, their bond growing stronger despite the complexities of their situation. As Jason's mission on Tevra neared its conclusion, the looming reality of departure cast a shadow over their newfound happiness. One crisp morning, as they walked through the gardens that had become their sanctuary, the air was thick with unspoken questions about their future. "Jason," Lyra started, her voice tinged with melancholy, "what will happen when you return to Earth?" Jason sighed, his heart heavy. "I've been thinking about that a lot," he admitted. "I don't want to leave without knowing there's a way for us to continue what we've started here." Lyra nodded, her hand tightening around his. "I have been researching possibilities. There might be a way for me to visit Earth, under the guise of a cultural exchange program. It would allow us to explore our relationship further, but it's not permanent." "That sounds promising, but also temporary," Jason replied, worry creasing his brow. Long term, it's going to be complicated. We come from two very different worlds. As they reached a bench, they sat, each lost in their thoughts. After a moment, Jason turned to Lyra, determination in his eyes. We need a plan, something sustainable if we're serious about making this work. I can also look into opportunities here on Tevra, maybe extend my mission or find a new assignment. Lyra's expression brightened slightly at the idea. That would give us time, she said. Time to figure out how to blend our lives without one of us losing our identity to the other's world. They spent the morning brainstorming possibilities, from Jason seeking a position within the Interstellar Diplomatic Corps that could base him on Tevra, to Lyra applying for positions that involved interplanetary relations which could see her spending more time on Earth. Later that day, they met with Mark and Kilo to discuss their options further. Mark had become a close confidant, and his perspective was invaluable. Jason, if you're considering staying longer, you should talk to the ambassador, Mark suggested. There might be positions opening up soon. With your experience, it's a strong possibility. Kilo, ever the practical one, added, and Lyra, your insights into human culture are profound. There's a program developing that focuses on deepening Tevran understanding of other species. You'd be perfect for it. Encouraged by their friends' support, Jason and Lyra felt a glimmer of hope. They agreed to pursue all avenues before making any final decisions. That evening, as they prepared to part ways after a quiet dinner in Jason's quarters, the emotional weight of their situation was palpable. Whatever happens, I want you to know, Lyra, that these months with you have changed me, Jason said earnestly. You've opened my eyes to so many things. Lyra smiled, her eyes moist. And you've given me a glimpse of a future I never imagined possible, she replied. No matter where we end up, I will carry this experience with me forever. They embraced, a long, tight hug that conveyed all the words they couldn't speak. When they finally stepped back, there was a mutual understanding that they were on the brink of a new chapter, one filled with uncertainty but also with limitless potential. As Jason watched Lyra leave, he felt a mix of fear and excitement. The future was uncertain, yes, but it was theirs to shape. With a deep breath, he turned back to his work, more determined than ever to forge a path that would lead them back to each other.